Welcome back, Truth Seeker. February 22nd, 2018. Breaking news about the Stoneman Douglas High School shooting. They're saying an armed deputy was on campus and he did nothing, violating the law. Apparently, it's been the law since the Columbine shooting that any armed deputy on campus has to engage the shooter immediately without waiting for backup. So that's the big storyline here. Consider this is coming the same day that Trump's been in the media saying what we need to do is have an armed presence on campus to keep students safe. The NRA also echoing the same message. So the day Trump puts out that message, then later, breaking news, there was an armed man on campus and he did nothing. And sure enough, the pundits get into, well, I guess this just goes to show having an armed presence on campus won't really stop shootings. And, you know, people need to break outside of the television and the media. All of this stuff is contrived crap. From Trump's proposal this morning to this now breaking news that counters Trump's proposal, all of this stuff is just meant to make people fight over nonsense. You know, at the same time, you could say, well, look, Washington State, which has the toughest gun control in the nation, they have a lot of school shootings. They've been making the headlines over the last few years for school shootings. Washington has all the background checks and a whole lot of laws on the books to limit who can get guns. You know, I live in Washington State. I can't own a gun. So anyway, just understand this is all crap, but I'm just going to let it play. Understand, people, all of this is contrived garbage. The shooting itself is contrived garbage. We've proven that. We've exposed that. Just had YouTube take down my channel with most of that exposure, but I'll get those videos back up. Listen, Truth Seeker.
Is CNN breaking news.
There's breaking news in the Florida high school shooting massacre that left 17 people dead. The Broward County Sheriff has just revealed that the armed school resource deputy waited outside the school as the shooting unfolded and never actually entered the building. CNN's Martin Savage is in Parkland, Florida for us with details. Martin, this is truly a stunning and such a disturbing development.
Yeah, it is, Wolf. It's a horrific change in the narrative here that we're getting. And this is coming from the sheriff of Broward County now, Scott Israel, who says that he first was going to suspend Scott Peterson, but now that deputy has resigned. We're going to play for you the news conference in which Sheriff Scott Israel explains what Peterson, who is the school resource officer, this is an armed deputy in uniform assigned to this campus, who was on the school that day as the gunfire breaks out. You could tell the sheriff was deeply distressed as he relayed the information. There were a series of questions asked. Here's how the narrative is put together by the sheriff.
Scott Peterson was absolutely on campus through this entire event. He was armed. He was in uniform. But what I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position, and he never went in. I think it was upwards. I think he remained outside for upwards of 4 minutes. He went on his, I think he got on his radio at a point in time, and he took up a position where it looked like he could see the westernmost entry into the building and stayed where he was. Never went in. Devastated, sick to my stomach. There are no words. I mean, these families lost their children. We lost coaches. I've been to the funerals. I've been to the homes where they sit and shiver. I've been to the vigils. It's just, there are no words.
Wolf, as you know, it is standard practice with law enforcement ever since Columbine in 1999 that any officer on scene with a weapon must go in and engage the gunman at the time of shooting taking place. You can't wait for backup. You can't wait for the SWAT team. That was the deadly consequence of Columbine, the lesson learned. But in this particular incident, the sheriff said that did not happen. There was an armed deputy, a good guy with a gun. There was a bad guy with a gun on the inside. And it did not work the way it was supposed to. And remember, Wolf, these families were told just days ago by the FBI that they had received a tip that this gunman was very likely going to carry out an attack at this school. They didn't act. Now those same families are being told there was an armed officer on campus outside the building where the shootings were taking place. And again, those families are told as their children were dying that law enforcement did not act. Wolf?
Truly shocking indeed. Martin Savage on the scene for us in Parkland. Martin, thank you very much. Let's bring in the panel. Jeffrey, you know, it's stunning to hear that, because the whole purpose of having an armed deputy at a school, God forbid if something like this happens, is for that deputy to do something.
But doesn't it show that a good guy with a gun can't stop this kind of activity? Yes, it's true, he should have gone inside, but if you have someone inside with an AR-15, how many armed officers, even if they're doing their job, can stop it? I mean, this just shows if you have assault weapons in schools, in the hands of lunatics, it doesn't matter how many people you have.
Yeah, I mean, but it does change the narrative here for the president, you know, to a degree. I don't know that it will, but, you know, the president talked about hardening the defenses inside the schools by either having the teachers be armed 20 to 40% or having more armed guards in. And then you hear this story, and first of all, your heart just breaks for the parents and the relatives of these children, because not only have they gotten the news about the FBI falling down on the job, but now this, and it just, I mean, I don't know how you process that, to be honest, but this whole notion that if you arm teachers, who, by the way, are not trained like this officer was, and that suddenly they're gonna do what this officer did not do, I think it raises a lot of questions about whether that's the right route to go.
It is sickening when you hear that kind of stuff, Sam. It makes all of us nauseous.
It definitely does, and there's also a national security angle to this, right? I mean, we know after Parkland that Russian bots and trolls went into overdrive, retweeting different pieces of this, conspiracy theories and all this finger pointing and all these different narratives about who's to blame. And I think over the coming weeks, as the Department of Justice looks at where the failure was, as different people try to come up with solutions, the troll farms are going to be working overtime.
You know, you gotta wonder if they're going to be able to learn lessons from this and really change things, or is this just going to go on and on and on?
Well, let's just stop it right there. We know it's going to go on and on and on and on until the agenda is complete, because this is an agenda. It is police, it is media, it is governments, it is school districts. The American people are being sold out. What happened in Parkland, Florida was not the work of a 19-year-old shooter. It was the work of your government and an ongoing agenda. We've proven that beyond a shadow of a doubt. People should pay attention that there is no evidence anywhere that anyone was even shot, hurt, or killed. Absolutely zero. If you watched the debate, the town hall last night, a girl got up and said she was shot 2 times. I wish she would have showed her bullet wounds, because she was speaking just fine. She was acting like she'd never been healthier. You know? There is zero evidence that anyone has been shot. The only image they've put out is of a black plastic dummy. That's it. With some blood on the ground that didn't look real at all. That is the closest thing you've seen to evidence that anyone was hurt. That doesn't count for anything. This is a news media, a government, a police that create propaganda all the time for the sake of agenda. It's about building the police, military, surveillance state. It's about taking away your liberties. They're talking about arming teachers. You know, they might do that in the future. They're building a police, military state. So we'll see what direction they go. Think about who this is impacting the most. Every child in every classroom, based on all of these shootings, plus now all the lockdowns that have happened since, every child is starting to think, you know, my school's next. The woman who called the program last night from Ohio, Holly, she said today, her daughter's school, across the street's a middle school, and there was a gun scare there. They had to lock down the schools. There was a major police response. This is being done all throughout the nation, across the entire nation. agenda, mind control, steering people, steering the herd. Till next time, truth seeker.